So I think there's definitely a key to longevity and having a campaign which isn't just a one-off post, but it's something that's more continued.
Sam, thank you so much for coming into the studio today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about Instagram influencers, but first of all, just give our audience a quick overview of who Generate are.
Sure. So Generate is a browser extension, and we enable people to have more control over the ads they see online and to earn money and be rewarded in return for seeing them.
Okay.
It's an interesting space, right? Because we all know that people get paid, like Instagram influencers get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
But also there's this space where ads are being, people can advertise on the Startup Fans website, and we will get X amount of money. But all our viewers that are bombarded with these ads, they don't get anything. All they get is an ad in front of their face. Annoyed, depending on how relevant it is. And I'm sure, it's a kind of a different example with us, because if someone's coming on our website, the only ads there are going to be for accountancy or consultancy or something that's related in business. But general browsing the web, it can be anything, and it can be just completely random.
Totally. So, I think what's really interesting is, if I go back a step and give you a quick touch on my background. So I spent 5 years at Red Bull, where I was a global brand manager there. And in that role, I was responsible or working on around about 1/3 of the global advertising. And that covered everything from out of home to digital to radio to print to TV, emerging media and so on. And what I found really interesting was, as of about 3 or 4 years ago, there was an obvious trend where brands and agencies were siphoning money away from traditional media like TV ads, and they were pouring it online. And what really jumped to my attention though at this time was from a consumer's perspective. So the average man on the street, it felt like people were becoming fed up with the number of ads they were seeing. And I could really clearly see this through the rise in ad blocking, to the extent, and do you guys know what ad blockers are, obviously?
Yeah.
Small extension that removes all advertising. To the extent that right now 650 million people are blocking ads. This is increasing by double digits year on year. And as a result, $41.4 billion of ad spend was blocked last year. So I really thought, God, there's got to be an opportunity to do something differently. Surely we can incentivize people to come back into this ecosystem and to be rewarded. So what we've done, exactly like you said, is we've flipped the model on its head, and we've said, hey, did you know that you are valuable? Your attention is valuable, and advertisers are paying to show you what you're interested in. So tell us what your preferences are, and we will tailor the ads you see anywhere online, and you will be rewarded for seeing them.
Ad blockers are like the most modern, up-to-date remote controls, because you can just change. TV, don't want to hear it. So ad blockers obviously taken over from that. Yeah,
it's an interesting one, right? Because obviously, ads are being shoved in front of people's faces. But is there a reason, obviously you replace ads, essentially. So you replace ads people don't want to see and overlay ads that they do want to see. What's the reason for someone not doing it? So who would say to you, I actually don't want to use Generate?
So the people that we're going after right now and really targeting are the existing ad blockers. So people that have already opted out of the ecosystem. So what we found is there's about 15 to 20% of people that block ads who say, no matter what you do, I never want to see ads. And that's fine, that's okay. Those guys can opt out, they can have control, and they can not see any ads. But there's also a very large portion of people that are currently blocking ads that have said, you know what, the reason I'm blocking them is because I see too many of them. They're not relevant enough. I'm concerned about security. I want to be incentivized. And what we've done is given them an option and an alternative to say, it's not just that you don't have to block ads, but instead you can come back into the ecosystem. You can be rewarded for seeing what you're interested in.
See, some of them make sense, right? Some annoy me in a way that, like, say, for argument's sake, Casper, right? The mattress company, right? I Googled Casper mattresses because I wanted to buy one. So I bought one. And then for the next 6 months, I'm followed around everywhere by Casper mattresses. I've already bought one.
Is that cool?
I bought one for Graham. Right? But and then you've got the likes of Amazon, who you will buy, say, the mattress, and now they'll target you with pillows, and they'll target you with duvets and the whole lot. So it's done in the right way. So how do you get rid of the ones that are real kind of like, I bought the mattress?
So we give the user control. So really simply, everyone has their own profile and their preferences, and you could literally untick a box and you won't see that anymore. So mattresses, depending where that sits in your profile.
Yeah.
But you'd literally untick, I'm not interested in bedding or whatever it is.
Okay.
And then you'd no longer see those ads.
It'd be interesting to chat just if we can about Instagram influencers and
Absolutely.
influencers in general. Because coming from a background in Red Bull are kind of the leaders in finding someone in extreme sports and slapping like a Red Bull hat on Ken Block or who is he Red Bull?
He's Monster. Or not Monster, he's Monster.
Yeah. So it's quite heavy in getting people that are quite cool and quite edgy and having them as your brand ambassadors, if you want to put it that way. How can brands do it right? How can brands find the right people? Because we know the likes of Monster and Red Bull and those and then a lot of alcohol companies, they can find people that just suit and they match. How can the average startup or scale up find someone who really fits what they're trying to achieve?
I think it's a fantastic question, especially because of the fact that if you look at bigger companies, so the likes of Red Bull or similar, it's a very, very different situation and conversation that they have with ambassadors versus a small startup like Generate or like a lot of this, the audience that we're watching. So very quick thing to touch on is the big cliche that everyone knows, and that's that you have to work with someone who has an authentic connection to your brand as opposed to a pay and they pump it and dump it afterwards. So I think there's definitely a key to longevity and having a campaign which isn't just a one-off post, but it's something that's more continued. In our experience, that's always worked well. But I think as well, when I look at our experience now as a startup and what we've been doing with influencers. So for example, there's Tribe being a very famous platform right now, which lots of people are getting on, where it's a marketplace where you can post a job and then influencers will ultimately bid to say, I will post this image for X amount of money. I think what's really, really interesting here is there's an enormous amount of trial and error, because when you're coming to this fresh, how are you supposed to know, well, what's a fair amount of pricing? What's the return we're going to get on this? The metrics that you're given are surrounded, or they're in line with likes and engagement, so likes and comments. But then you've got to figure out through trial and error, will these likes and comments actually drive a result or an action that I'm trying to do? And dependent on that, you either invest into it or you don't.
Is it fair to say though, with the likes of a brand, we'll just pick Red Bull because obviously you work with Red Bull, like, it works a hell of a lot better for them because it's always going to be pretty much a brand awareness piece, right? Where like Coca-Cola, they're so big and it makes sense for them to kind of go, right, we can work with loads of small influencers and we can get so many images out there online of someone holding a Coke can, compared to what other people are paying for, because they're expecting a return on something, or a sale or something. Which like Coca-Cola and Red Bull know that not all of these are going to lead to sales, but it's still in people's minds because you know what it is straight away off the bat. So how do you price something like that? Like for the smaller company who like us, you want the Startup Van name out there, say. But maybe you want to link back to download or watch a video or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a great question. The starting point, of course, is understanding who your audience is and where they spend their time and attention, and then using that as the basis to divide your marketing spend into which channels you're putting it into, whether that's influencers, whether that's Facebook ads, whether that's LinkedIn ads, whether it's a sponsored podcast, and so on. What I found, looking at some of the recent tests that we've done, is we are very much performance driven. So an easy campaign to run is an awareness campaign, because all you care about is reach, or perhaps you care about your likes and engagement. But we all know, especially if you're coming from a world where performance matters and you're driving towards targets, awareness for a small startup isn't necessarily going to move the dial, unless you've got a very high frequency cap and you're hammering people with the same message so many times that they're actually going to end up taking an action. So from my perspective, we've been trying to push for a lot of performance campaigns, and when I look at some of the influencers that we've worked with, we haven't got results which you'd perhaps expect. It's been relatively high cost and very, very low in terms of results, even though there has been tens of thousands of likes, hundreds of thousands of comments, enormous engagement, stuff that you could send in a wrap-up report that would make a manager or a boss say, great job, but when you're working for yourself, for a startup,
it didn't relate to sales.
Absolutely useless.
We had chatted earlier on about don't exist anymore, so you may as well mention them, SupApp.
That's
funny that you're in, because we were just talking about them earlier, but £1 million in funding, and blew through that in really short space of time, months.
A lot of online marketing.
Influencers, it was a new social networks. They're right, cool influencers, and they blew hundreds of thousands of pounds and ran out of money in a really short space of time. For that reason, it didn't drive back downloads. It didn't, there was a lot of people talking about it.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean that they were using it, which is the thing.
And it's easy to spend the cash as well with influencers. You get, when you see the rate cards, again, it differs depending if we're talking about a YouTuber versus an Instagrammer versus someone else. But the rate card prices for some of these guys is absolutely insane. It's crazy.
Well, then what about, dare I mention the dreaded word fire? That was all around influencers. They've got the top 10 models, and they were taking photographs and they were pushing it out, and it worked for them because that all led to sales.
It did. Absolutely, Mark.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that influencer marketing doesn't work. I'm absolutely certain.
It just, you need to be careful who you work with.
I'm convinced that it does. But I think, if you're not going into it with your eyes wide open, if you haven't got clear metrics that you're looking for, if you haven't tested along the way, if you're going in with a big budget and you're deploying it, I think it's pot luck whether you'll see success. And there's a great example just 2 weeks ago from a girl who shall remain unnamed, but an influencer that had 2.6 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And she was launching her own clothing line. And it was t-shirts, so t-shirt clothing.
Yeah.
And she needed to sell 36 items in order to order them into production and send them out. So she posted it to her 2.6 million followers. She had over 250,000 likes. She had heaps and heaps of comments, so massive engagement by all accounts. And how many t-shirts do you think she sold?
Under the 36.
Under the 36. How ridiculous is this?
Do you know, can you remember how much she might have been selling a t-shirt for?
We're talking normal pricing.
Normal
it's
pricing,
not that it was premium, crazy, quality, brand new Louis Vuitton. No, a normal £25, £30 t-shirt, couldn't sell 36 of them. Now, if you're coming in as a brand and you're working with, say, this influencer or someone similar, this is your project to them. Generally, unless you have an authentic connection and a long-standing relationship and something ongoing, they're looking to post and to move on. So if this individual was unable to sell more than 36 of her own items which she cared about and wanted to push, what do you think is going to happen to your brand?
Well, roughly, I don't know if you know the figures, roughly how much might that cost to work with someone who might have 2.6 million followers? For them to do a post, does anyone know, do you know?
Probably 15, 20,000.
20,000 for her to put out an image or a video, and as you said, let's assume she got one sale at least, right? But she got under the 36, so that one just so wasn't worth your money.
And it's the exact reason why influencers, more often than not, will not do I've put my referral link below.
Yeah.
They may do that on top of getting paid 8,000 or 9,000.
But pay me first.
But they will never do, I'll just get paid for what I sell.
Paid for results are performance driven.
Yeah.
You're totally right. And whenever I encounter that, which is rife within the influencer world, it always strikes a bit of a chord where I think, oh, is this really the best way to spend money? If a person, when properly incentivized, doesn't want to take that deal.
I know.
Always sends off warning bells.
Because you think if they're doing their job right, they should be making more money on the sale.
Absolutely.
Sam, thank you so much for coming into us today.
Really
we could actually sit here and talk about this all day, but we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming in.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks
Thank you.
a million. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.